group of 125 truck owners were asked what brand of truck they owned and whether or not the truck has four-wheel drive. The results are summarized in the two-way table below. Suppose we randomly select one of these truck owners. All right, so we have yes or no for four-wheel drive, and we have three brands of truck: Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. All right, before I start reading through the answer choices, I'm going to do something that you should always do with a two-way table, which is to calculate all of the totals. Okay, so we're going to find the total of each row, and we're going to find the total of each column. Okay, so 28 and 17 is 45. 32 and 18 is 50. 20 and 10 is 30. Okay, now for each column, 28 plus 32 plus 20, that's 80. Okay, 17, 18, and 10, that's 30, 45. All right, so the grand total looks like it is 125. Yeah. All right, so now I think we're ready to start answering some of these questions. So 5.1, what's the probability that the person owns a Dodge or has four-wheel drive? Okay, so here, why don't I just highlight all the people that own a Dodge, and then all the people that have a four-wheel drive. Okay. All right, so I could simply just add those four cells together, right? And that'll give me the numerator of the probability. So 28 plus 32 plus 20 plus 10. Here, let me write this out, what I'm doing. 28 plus 32 plus 20 plus 10, right? So that represents all the people who match this description. They own a Dodge or they have four-wheel drive out of the 125 total people. And so that numerator is 90 out of 125, right? And then that matches choice D. Okay, another option that you could do instead is you could take the total number of people who own Dodge trucks plus the total number of people who have four-wheel drive, add those together, but then you need to adjust for the overlap or adjust for the double counts. Okay, so there's 20 people that would have got counted twice if we just do 80 plus 30. So 80 plus 30 minus the 20 double counts, right? And this is going to give us the same answer, 90 out of 125. Okay. All right, so let's move on to question number 2. What's the probability that the person owns a Chevy given that the truck has four-wheel drive? All right, so let me erase my previous marks here. Okay, and so the fact that we're only going to focus on the trucks with four-wheel drive means that we're going to look at just this portion of the table, right? And we're going to ignore that column, and we could ignore all the row totals. Okay, so now we're going to look at it as if there were only 80 people, because there are only 80 people who have four-wheel drive, and of those 80, Chevy, 32 own a Chevy. Okay, so that would make B the correct answer. All right, so the most important thing in this question is that you see the word given. That indicates that we're calculating a conditional probability, and so we're not looking at the total sample space anymore, but just the part of the sample space that meets this condition. They have to have a four-wheel drive. All right, question number 3. Which one of the following is true about the events owner's truck is a Chevy and owner's truck has four-wheel drive? Okay, so statement A, these two events are mutually exclusive and independent. All right, so looking at all the choices, they either have to do with mutually exclusiveness or independence. Okay, so first, mutually exclusive, what does that mean? This would mean the events cannot occur together. Right, so that would mean if somebody owns a Chevy, then they can't own a four-wheel drive, or if they own a four-wheel drive, then they can't own a Chevy. Okay. Now we know that's not true because there are people in this two-way table that own both a Chevy and a four-wheel drive, right? If this cell had been a 0, right, then we could say that the events are mutually exclusive, okay, since nobody has both nobody would have a Chevy and four-wheel drive, okay. But it's not 0, it's 32, which means these events can occur together, okay. So now I can go through the choices, and anything that says that they're mutually exclusive is now a false statement. So A is false, B is false, and E is false, right? To say that they are mutually exclusive is incorrect. Okay, so we've already narrowed it down to 2 choices. Okay, now independence basically means the occurrence of one event doesn't change the probability of the other event occurring. So whether one event occurs does not affect the probability of the other event. All right, there's a simple way to check for independence, right? You can find the probability of one event, find the probability of that same event given that the second event has occurred, and then also find the probability of, say, the first event given that the second event has not occurred. Okay, and if you find that all these probabilities are the same, right, then what that means is the occurrence of the second event or not doesn't change the probability of the first event. All right, so here what are we looking at? Chevy ownership and four-wheel drive. Okay, so let's look at, here it's really quite simple. Let's just look at the probability that somebody owns a Chevy given that the truck's a four-wheel drive. We'll find the probability that they own a Chevy given that it's not a four-wheel drive, and then we'll find the overall probability that somebody owns a Chevy. Okay. All right, her. Okay, so this, let's see if we can write it in here. So this would be, okay, let's do it. Just looking for space. Okay, we'll do it right here. So this would be 32 out of 80. This would be 18 out of 45. And this would be 50 out of 125. Okay, it's hard to compare fractions, especially when the denominators are different, so let's convert these to decimals. 32 out of 80 is about 40%, so we'll write that as 0.4. 18 out of 45 is also 40%, 0.4. 50 divided by 125 is 40%, 0.4. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether the truck is four-wheel drive or not four-wheel drive, the chances of picking a Chevy owner is always 40%. Okay. So we've just demonstrated that the probabilities here are all the same, which means that we have independent events. Okay, so then the answer should be C.